Yep. Wait, so repeat, Brad, $2,500 minimum and an $800 bonus for what?
Just to go to Florida and stage.
Just to stage. That's incredible.
Right. Yeah.
Stage what? Equipment?
Yeah, you'd stage so they could offer you, at that point, they would give you 50 or 100 claims and then send you wherever you needed to go.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I'll stage all day for that.
Yeah.
Staging it up.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
We need to get you a Restoration Rebel koozie, don't we?
Oh, man, you know it. It'd be better than Adventure Boats.
There we go.
I told you I needed a shirt.
There's the meeting.
All right, so I got a video going over here. I got audio going right here. How am I coming through for y'all?
Sounding good.
Yep, good here.
All right.
Clear over here.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to give it a couple more minutes and let people...
Pretty much not doing a lot of talking tonight. I want to let some of you guys that are dealing with the cat, but I'm seeing a lot of people talking about leaving Houston and heading to Florida, but I feel like there's just a lot left to do in Houston. What does that look like and mean for everybody? Is that leaving it just to the big boys or to the locals only, or what?
Well, I think the big boys have gone. The BMSs and the Belfours and the interstates, they're gone. The Cottons, they're not here anymore. They're going and cherry picking commercial jobs out in Florida now.
So isn't there like 60,000 commercial buildings that were damaged in Houston?
I don't think the total damage assessment has been done yet.
Okay.
2 days ago, I was talking to folks, and they're saying there's entire counties in Texas that haven't even been assessed yet.
Right. Right.
So we don't know. All right, who's in their truck on a Samsung G930? There we go.
That would be.
I'm gonna mute you until you want to say something. How about that?
Okay. I was going to say something about the cat, but that's fine.
No, well, all right. It's your turn. Say something about the cat.
So I think there's a lot of stuff in Houston and Florida, but there's also a lot of stuff that's going unnoticed in like coastal Georgia and South Carolina and places like that.
What are you seeing? Like what?
Well, I am currently in South Carolina right now working on a flooded resort that has 300 units that are totally flooded. And I have not seen one other restoration contractor all day long. Not one.
No shit.
Well, what's it?
No.
What would it take?
Yeah, they're all going straight
to come and mobilize on that.
All right, want to
Do what?
Ryan, what was your question? Ryan McIntosh, what was your question?
What would it take for us to mobilize on that? Like gather the manpower to actually go and help these places that are desolate and nobody's responding to them.
Well, I think there's a couple things so that I've noticed here. The areas that are flooded are like spotty, so it's not like something that's on the news. And the only reason I'm here is because I'm working underneath another company that has a national contract with this particular place that I'm working for, and the whole place is flooded. but there's tons of houses and other, small independent grocery stores and gas stations and stuff that were flooded that I don't think anybody's doing anything for.
Wow.
But nobody can get through the roadblock unless you already have a contract with somebody. The police won't let you through. So.
Wow. All right. Hey. All right. Before we
very
get too far down the road, let's do a commercial break for the
Andy, you're breaking up a lot.
Man, Andy, your audio's bad.
Show that will protect myself by giving them out. I'm terrible. I'm gonna turn this video off. I'm gonna get rid of this. Ah, shoot. All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Slower too.
Hey, Drew.
Agreement number.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Agreement number 2. I will practice incredible those daily way.
I'm just letting them know what's up.
Nobody can hear you, Andy. Andy.
Andy's choppy.
Andy, you need to try to dial in on your cellular and not use the VoIP.
Go put the food up? No, I'm going to have to get out of it anyway. I'll catch back up to it later. They usually go for an hour or two.
Hey guys, how about we do some introductions? Because I don't think I haven't been in on one of these, and it'd be nice to get to know you guys.
Hey Ryan, I'll start it off. This is Clark. Over here is me.
I know Clark. I've chatted with you on Facebook, haven't I?
You have.
Yeah.
Dirty.
Yeah.
It was dirty too.
Yeah, girl. Get it.
I'm Brad Putman. I live in Oklahoma City. I'm a general contractor and a large loss adjuster. I was invited to the group. We are putting together a group of actors, and we follow you guys, the Restoration 2.0 on LinkedIn, and we're invited to chime in. So we appreciate the invitation.
Good to meet you. Anybody else on there? Okay. Well, my name is Ryan McIntosh. I'm from Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, to be more specifically. Disaster restoration specialist, IICRC certified, etc. Came here. Andy had me come out to help on the loss out here. So I'm honored to be a part of this. And glad I get to meet you guys.
This is Drew Blackwell with Rapid Restoration. I do a little bit of consulting and own my own restoration company that does mitigation and construction based out of Atlanta, Georgia.
Good to meet you.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
You guys seen a lot of, besides what you have just drove through within the Carolinas, have you seen a lot more devastation there in Georgia.
So there were a lot of trees and stuff down in Metro Atlanta where we're from. And I'm not really chasing the storm. I have a commercial client or a company that I do a lot of work for in Atlanta. And they called me and said, hey, we don't have anyone to handle this. Can you handle it for me? And I'm out here. And I think Andy and I might be having some of the same bosses for the next couple of weeks, if that gives Andy any hints on who I'm working with.
Very cool.
Same losses? What is that? Did I hear that correctly?
Who else we got on here?
Bob
Sam
Kimmel
is on here.
Join the meeting.
Sam?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Not storm chasing at the moment, but we're just slammed up here. We just picked up we had 3 more water losses, a suicide, another trauma, and asbestos. You can start naming it.
Nice. Then that's good.
Yeah.
Unfortunate, but good.
Andy,
Yes, sir.
can you hear me, Andy?
I can hear you.
This is Bob Timmel. I just signed in.
Bob, how you doing, buddy?
Good. What a mess.
Man, we're having a hell of a time chalking across the country tonight. This is the worst connection we've had so far. What? Hey, David.
Yeah. Bad reception.
David Sweet.
I got the times all screwed up. Sorry.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us about living through the storm there in Tampa? What was that like?
It was, to be honest with you, it was like a nasty thunderstorm in Indiana.
Really?
We had some good wind gusts, but by and large, it was kind of a non-event. Without the power going out, honestly, that was kind of the most difficult part of it. The lack of power. Had no damage to my house, and we've not had a lot come in yet. Had a commercial building or two where the roofs have peeled off, but nothing huge yet. And Clark, I probably can't help you with those 3 DUs and 20 air movers.
Okay, yeah, that was just over in Lakeland. I don't know. Equipment seems to be what everybody needs right now, but I told her I would try to find someone local to get that for her. That doesn't make sense for me to try to get it to her.
Yeah, I know. And what's happening is it's going to kind of dribble out. I got 2 or 3 commercial jobs where they're just having trouble tarping the roofs. And these are relationships I have with the few relationships left I have with adjusters. And they're like, hold off until they can get that roof patched so you don't run up a needless mitt bill. I'm like, you realize the longer this goes, nastier the water's getting. Yeah, I understand. I'd rather deal with that. I can explain that. Okay.
Yep. Well, we just heard.
So a fair amount of hurry up and wait, man.
We had an earlier call, and we heard tonight that dry ease officially is back ordered until the end of November.
Really?
Yeah. So the national players are trying to cut deals at the national level, at the manufacturer level, to get direct off the line stuff. But we don't think dry ease can. Or we don't think Phoenix is going to play ball, but dry ease might. Which means somebody's going to get dibs on all the equipment running off the line at dry ease.
Wow.
Well, I'll tell you, I really honestly think given the fact that we had Houston first, and an awful lot of that equipment went there in advance, and it's going to be there for quite a while, I think the bigger opportunity is going to be the next, not this month probably, but in the month after. Once everything gets nasty and moldy, once all the preferred vendors can't get to these jobs, finally do get there, do their 3-day wonder drives. leave everything all nice and wet, and coming back in behind those preferred vendors where there's no policy limits anymore.
That way they can.
4 and 2. First one 4.
Hey, David.
Yes, sir.
Hey, so the policy limits. You're in Florida, right?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, we gotta get that out. And he's gone.
Yes, Ryan. I'm in Florida.
Ryan.
That's an odd look you got on your face there, big guy.
Ryan McIntosh is right there.
Of this caliber.
There he is.
This isn't tile.
Ryan, we got nothing.
This isn't tile.
We didn't catch
Hey,
any
Drew.
question.
Yeah.
Hey, Drew, you want to
Yes.
push mute? You want to push mute?
We hear how busy you guys are.
Yeah, someone's doing some demo.
Yes, Ryan. I'm in
Oh
Tampa.
yeah, we're doing demo. We're working, man.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
I can't find the mute. If you guys want to mute me, that's fine. I'll just listen. Actually, I'm probably gonna get off here, and then I'll get back on when I come back into my room here in about 20 minutes.
All right, Drew. See you, man.
Hey, guys, this is Clark. We went through some bad audio patches there. Brad, did you introduce yourself?
Yes, sir, I did. Sorry.
Okay. I was interested in yourself. I talked to Jeremy, and he said he wouldn't be available, but
Right.
I wanted to introduce you and Jeremy. And Andy, I met with Jeremy Hedinger and Brad a few days ago. They are very similar. It's funny how we're finding a lot of these unified ideals of networks and groups are coming together all with the same issues. And I think, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are more on the construction and GC side.
Yes, sir. We do here in Oklahoma City. Me and my partner, Vince Lawrenson, he owns Choice Solutions. We're general contractors, and what we ran across is we have customers here that have houses in Missouri or Colorado or Arkansas or Texas. So we started putting together a network of contractors where commercial and residential. So, if I've got a customer in Colorado, I've got a guy up there, Chris Horning, I can call him. He's on LinkedIn. He can take care of it. And then basically he pays us a finder's fee, a salesman fee, the 10% kind of deal. Right now, there's probably 10 or 12 of us that are involved in this. We're still working out all the details. We're not a good group like you guys are. And we're looking to be able to bring in a restoration crew where I don't deal with ServPro even as an adjuster. I do not recommend ServPro, Blackman Mooring, Service Master. I want the local guy. After 20 years of being an adjuster, I know how the big guys work, and that's not what I want to give to customers. So we don't even recommend when insurance companies now send out those guys. We tell them no. We just tell them to leave the job site, and we get our local guy here to do it. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking to bring a group like y'all's into our network also, just like you guys are doing, where they can network with David in Florida or Ryan where you're from, or wherever you guys are from. That's what we're looking to do with contractors also.
You're not looking at it's not
Good for you.
Pay, though. It's not pay to
So-
play, right? It's not a subscription
Quick
model.
question. I don't know if my question went through or not, but I wanted to ask in Florida, because I know they have the $10,000 mold cap, and what happens to the homes that they do have coverage and so forth? Do they? How does that work?
That's only in Citizens Trust Insurance, Ryan. That's not every home.
Well, it's only
And I think-
citizens, and it got. I thought it got struck down at the Supreme Court level already.
Well, it did for this event, I think. David may know more than we do, but it's only 160,000 policies. So I don't know how much that's into effect. But David, did they say, "Hey, oops, just kidding"? We kind of pulled the trigger too quick on that right before a major hurricane.
I know they pulled out on the adjusters. They decided they couldn't put adjusters on the ground with the requirements they had in place. I haven't heard yet that they bypassed the $10,000 limit. And that's what was actually so interesting, and I think it's going to bite them so bad.
Yeah.
Because whether it's a $10,000 limit, and Citizens is particularly nasty, because what it's meant to do is it's a $10,000 limit unless you use their preferred vendor,
Right.
at which point you have a completely unlimited coverage A.
In a situation,
So,
Let's
yeah, there's
let's go back for
gone.
let's
Preferred vendors are gone. They're out there.
Well, and what's going to happen for all these people that are required by their contracts, ASI, Heritage, there's probably 10 insurance companies that require people to use the preferred vendors by contract. So what happens when those vendors can't get there? They now have a duty to actually do that. If they can't respond to that duty, now there's no policy limits. Everything's going to sit and rot, and the attorneys are going to all be driving Ferraris for their third and fourth cars before this is all over with.
That's
well,
exactly right.
here's a question I have. Okay, so this obviously made a lot of the headlines about what 5 weeks ago, but I believe citizens only got the authority and passed it, but an insured person would have to sign a new policy. So that may be moving forward. I don't think they have that ability to treat current insured policies that way. It's only new ones going forward. So I don't.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
because I don't think it's going to affect anybody.
No.
Because they just got that passed through the insurance commission this last month. So it's moving forward on new.
People's Trust, Heritage, ASI, Florida Peninsula, kind of folks that are required to use their preferred vendors or have $3,000 limits. And that $3,000 isn't necessarily a total limit. It may just be for emergency services, not that they defined it in the policy so they can tell the difference. They've made themselves a nightmare to try and figure out what the policies actually made because they didn't change anything in their ISO policies. And there's no term and condition under it. There's no definitions for that stuff. So the problem is they're just more than likely, they're real likely if they don't like you to just say there's no coverage, try and pull you off the job and stick one of their preferred vendors on if they can find it.
That's dirty.
But I just think they would have their hands full enforcing that.
Oh, they would. There's no way they've actually. I know half the people that I know that are smaller independents went out of business this year. So what they've done is by pushing everybody into those preferred vendor networks, they've starved out a lot of the independents. It would be the independents that have the equipment and come in could help right now. Unfortunately, they can't do anything because they aren't around anymore. So, yeah, they've kind of cooked themselves up a perfect storm. And that's why I'm saying, everybody's rushing to get down here and do work. And if you got it, obviously come do it. But I'm telling you, I think the real money is going to be made starting in about 2 to 3 months. All this stuff is going to be left. It's all going to be improperly dried at the end of the day. And there are going to be literally 1 million+ houses that someone has either not gotten to or screwed up profoundly that are still going to have to be taken care of.
Okay, David. Well, let's go there for just a minute, David. Okay, Florida has licensures for mold. There aren't enough licensed mold remediators in Florida to work under that license to manage those houses.
You're right.
In your best opinion, let's say there's 1,000 licensed mold remediators in Florida. At that rate, it would take 3 years to get those. I mean, what's going to happen there?
I don't know. I mean, there's a whole lot more than 1,000, believe it or not.
Okay.
My number, my assessor's license is 425. My remediator's license is 422, and I was in within the first day. So I think you'll probably find there's 10, 15,000 companies, but not all of them are real actual operating companies. Some of them are just people that got the license to be able to do inspections or so that they can be on projects like that.
Yeah.
And then the bigger issue is there's absolutely nothing tying it to a particular standard. So if you can get somebody to pay you for your remediation, it can be good, it can be bad, it can be terrible, it can be wonderful. You can get someone to pay for it, it's kosher, at least as far as the carriers are concerned at the moment.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
So in this time frame that they're trying to figure out if the claims are going to be covered and so forth, could they come back and say that it was negligent by any means and not cover that claim?
Well, and that's the question. You know, we have all kinds of 14-day exclusions right now. Well, what happened up from day 1 to day 14? They still owe for the water damage. They still owe for the progression from category 1 to category 3. There'd still be cleaning remediation, engineering barriers, all the stock and trader remediation. They could limit maybe the spread of it, but in 14 days, I can cross-contaminate in a whole house with no problem.
Right.
So how do you tell the difference between the two? So if you take that same logic of them constantly trying to say, we don't cover that, and apply it to now the insureds who can't find somebody, can't get somebody, and say that they were negligent in the process of it, I could see them trying to deny all kinds of things. And they tried that crap back in 04. They tried to pay $10,000 policy limits. Nothing for remediation at all, or for mid at all. Nothing for restoration. They just wanted to pay him the $10,000 because now it's a microbial event. And then they got sued and sued and sued and sued, and everyone stopped doing that.
Right.
But
you know, guys, the issue
3 years.
The issue with that, I don't mean to interrupt. The issue with that, from the adjuster standpoint on that, was the fact that when the hurricane came through, it had gasoline and feces and all that, so there was absolutely no Cat 1 water. It was all straight Cat 3 water at that point.
Actually, would be considered a special situation.
Yes. So, I mean, it went directly to Cat 3, and at that point, everything was supposed to be removed. And there was a lot of the big boy remediation companies that were trying to dry stuff out that needed to be cut out, removed, demoed, so on and so on. So that's where that came through in 04. I was part of that one, too, in New Orleans and Alabama and through there, so Florida.
Hey, Brad, since you were talking, I wanted to come back to our conversation so you and Jeremy are clearly more on the construction contracting side, and our group is probably primarily mitigation, but you'll hear a lot of our topics or our foundation of kind of the formation will be on programs and TPAs and things like that. And I play dumb in it. How much do you struggle with that on the contracting side? I mean, is preferred vendor for the contractor as stringent as it is on the restoration mitigation?
We do have certain insurance companies that make us use IPNs, preferred network, to get a competitor bid a lot of times. And, of course, they say we'll pay from the competitor bid, but when we actually show that contractor how he should use Xactimate to his advantage, then they refuse to. Then at that point, they refuse to pay from the preferred vendor network guy at that point. So we're actually in the process of dealing with Safeco Insurance. They refuse. The first thing out, they deny your claim, then they want an engineer, then they want to send a preferred network contractor out. So we're dealing with that on, I think, 4 or 5 different ones here in Oklahoma City right now. And we're going to get an attorney involved and actually make them go back and look at all the deceptive practices of the insurance carrier. So we fight it from that way. Yes, that's it.
Hey, Andy. Send that man a shirt. He is a rebel.
So we are going to start fighting it that way. Our biggest concern, our biggest thing is we don't have access to remediation people that we trust, that we like, that don't go in and overdo their job. Out here, of course, Mid-America, it's Surf Pro and Blackman Mooring and Belfour and those guys, and they come in and they eat up your limit and walk off, and the work's not done, and there's not money to put the people back in their homes. So that's where we like a small local guy that comes in and does the job correctly the first time, and from that point, then there is money left to put the homeowner back. So
what do you mean
that's why we want to get involved with y'all's group and proceed from there. See if it works. I mean, we'd love to give you guys work.
Define your terms, Brad. What do you mean they eat up the limit? What does that look like?
A lot of times in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, there are policies that will have a water limitation of $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, maybe $50,000 water limit. So, if you've got a $10,000 loss and you got a $5,000 limit, you know where you're stuck. But I've seen ServPro go in and run up a $45,000 bill on a $3,000 remediation and left the homeowner with $5,000 to build his house back. So that's what we deal with the big guys. And that's, like I said, that's where we use the small local guys, and we're trying to get in more with some small local guys. We just got to vet them and make sure they do their damn jobs.
How does a program contractor do that with all the KPIs and SLAs they have to abide by? How do they do that in your because in my state where I'm from, my experience and in my background, we'd get run off the programs and we'd die on the vine because they wouldn't get any work if we started doing that. So how are they doing program work? How are they doing that?
A lot of the big guys are in directly with the carriers. Oklahoma may have 4 million people, whatever it is, 3 million people. So it's not sparsely populated. So at that point, these big guys can go into a carrier. State Farm has an office here, so the big guys can walk in there and cut a deal so they're on their preferred network. And at that point, they get the work, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. So we fight it that way at the same time.
Yeah, Andy.
Seems like after
Andy,
a while, they have these high prices that the carrier would come back and say, you know what, this isn't working. You guys need to get to the curb.
You would think that, and we have actually asked. We do a lot of water losses for clients that we have. We don't like to do them because we know the customer's going to get screwed by ServPro or Black Mooring or whoever it is, and we've actually asked them to leave. We've asked them to, get off our job site, go somewhere else, and we call in a local guide that we trust, and he does it for about a third of what was written up by the big guys, and he does it correctly. Not to say the big guys don't do it correctly, but in some circumstances I've seen where they overextend, over tear stuff out. Here, let's go ahead and take out all the whole kitchen, So that's why we like the way you guys do it.
A lot of times your larger companies are starting to throw mobilization costs on this. And we have a local presence, but we're busy, so we're going to bring in the guys from Dallas, and now you're starting to see reimbursables.
Right.
Hey Ryan, where's home at for you, Ryan? Is that Ohio? Ryan McIntosh? Frozen?
Yeah.
Andy Frozen?
Yeah.
Frozen chosen.
I think we lost him.
Okay, Bob, where's home for you, Bob?
He's out of the Dayton.
I'm in Buffalo.
Can you hear me? Hold on.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Buffalo, New York.
No,
I can hear you.
I'm in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, Dayton.
Well, I like, Brad, just to kind of put the bookend on what you're talking about. In Jeremy and I've had 2 conversations. I like this is probably my favorite part of Restoration 2.0. It's not to hear me or David Herring or Andy really speak, although Andy speaks very eloquently. I think the value, the end value is going to be hundreds. That's going to become maybe a few thousand contractors that all have the same grievances, pains, stress points, are going to hear enough other people talk about it, then become empowered to say, wait a minute, we're not just a small minority, we're a medium size, and we are, and a lot of people are spinoffs from, listen, I've worked for BMS Cat, Brad. I hear what you're saying, and Andy's worked for a lady, I think everybody here has probably done their time with a large contractor and said, this isn't long term, this isn't for me. But I like the synergy and the cohesion that this is probably a year from now. I think this whole thing's going to look a whole lot different from the unification of you having a network and a Rolodex full of people, and so is Andy, and so does David and Ryan. That's what I hope to pull from it.
Hey,
I think.
Hey, so okay, you were talking. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we were talking about like how ServPro and all them, or how they're like getting in with these service providers and so forth. I have one of my contacts there in Dayton, Ohio. He works for Servpro, and they actually pay off the insurance entity to recite these jobs and so forth. They pad the pockets of these people. It's time like that guys like us, we go in and, we stop inflating these estimates. And I know that we have to make money. All of us have to make money. But at the same token, we don't need to inflate it to the fact to where, these insurance companies are having to pay and pay and pay. We just need to take care of the customer and look at them as a customer and not a number. You know what I mean? So that's I think it's we just had to reel it back a little bit.
Well, I think it's fair to say, and I'm sure Andy and Brad and everybody will say, we can say that there's dirty on all sides. There's dirty adjusters. There's dirty contractors. I mean, every trade has its underbelly. And I don't think you ever get. I think the equipment rental company. I think every distributors. Everybody has that bad seed or that bad segment of group, and they always just end up gravitating together and go from company to company and contractor to contractor. And I think that's probably always been the case for as long as there's been contracting. And I think it's just like some of our motivational speakers that I listen to. You got to tune that out. You got to put your filter on and just say those exist. They aren't us, and we don't hear they're not on these calls. Those guys are not on. They're not talking about the same things that we're talking about. So therefore, they don't really exist. They're there, and so be it. But but anyway, Brad, I wanted to just end it with that. And Brad, I tell everybody that I talk to now. And by the way, Andy, I heard back from the author, finding Jay thing. Book is laid, denied, and defend, Brad. It's about the practices of insurance and how.
Nice.
Yep, look at there. David's got it right there.
Thanks.
David's got. David, I emailed the author, Jay Feinstein. He's actually still an attorney. A professor at Rutgers, a law professor. And I told him we were holding a conference, and he sent me about 5 links that I haven't. He's like, man, he goes, dude, I'm all about that. And I was kind of hoping he would offer us $1 a book special so we could give them away for free at the conference. But, I think Andy reminded me that there's a cost to printing on that, and that couldn't happen. But I tell you what, I enjoy reading that book. And it again, none of it really surprises me. It's just seeing it written on paper with case study behind it that just makes it more real. It takes it out of I heard it from so-and-so and it's a myth and it was part of my imagination. So this stuff really, really happens. And it's not just property. It's a lot of personal injury as well. That's probably on a larger scale. There's a lot of that goes on. People personally injured and they go a year, 2 years, or 3 years with no payout. And then now they're sitting on medical bills and no job. They're going to take a settlement for 30 cents on the dollar.
That's Unum.
That's what you know what I'm saying? That's the part that probably that we're not even talking about because it's not our business. But I think that's a big, big piece of it. Auto accidents and whatnot. So I think bringing all these voices together and hearing different examples is just makes our message more concrete than it was before.
I think one of the main things that we need to actively combat is that negative connotation of restoration. It just seems to be, it's guilty before assumed innocent, and the only way to fight that is through repeatedly doing the right thing, and saying the right message, and saying the same things over and over. We're not in a creative writing exercise to see how big our bill can get. We need to be documenting and showing our documentation and educating the consumer on what we're doing and why we're doing it and why it costs what it costs. But only through this concerted effort are we going to be able to shake the shadiness. And David, you've gone a long way as far as the documentation goes and proving your case of water and drying, where if we all adopt a similar standard of here's my dry standard, here's my existing conditions, and here's how I drive this structure down, and you can see that, and you communicate that over time of this is the only way we're going to drive structures. There's no magic voodoo. We are going to choose this way, and this is going to be our adopted standard of how to drive structures. And it's going to be transparent. It's going to be easy to understand, and there's not going to be any room for fluff, because we have to avoid even the appearance of misconduct if we hope to change our industry and take our industry back. And it's ours.
That's accountability.
Yeah. Because I take it personally when someone says so and so is padding the bill. I want to go over there and kick their ass, because they're not just making a bad name for themselves. They're making a bad name for all of us, and that's not right.
Yeah.
So one thing that we're doing is we've got a guy that works for the Attorney General's office in Missouri. He's buddies with Jeremy Hedinger. We actually are running contractors through him and having him vet our contractors that come into our network. So I don't know.
What's his standard? What
Man, I don't have all the details. Andrew, I don't have all the details yet. We have just started using him, but it's the first step that we're taking in order to vet contractors in areas to where we could actually then throw your name out of wherever you guys are at. Right. Also, we want to be able to help you guys too the same way.
It's a great step.
So, that's just where we started on our vetting process. So the contractors that we want to work with, including the restoration guys, will all be vetted through that guy to be in our group also. So,
I don't know if you guys follow NORP at all. Does you follow NORP?
I was about to say the same thing. That sounds like more of a thing for NORP too.
Okay.
They're
Whitney. My friend Whitney Wiseman on there. He's a good guy. He knows his stuff. He's me and him were talking recently about creating some sort of a union type for the restoration industry, and which I think is a great idea, because it will help if we kind of put things where they need to be and so forth. Then then we can knock out the people that doesn't do it right. And if they pay their dues and so forth, then, we could have a big network of, restoration professionals that actually do things correctly and provide the service that we should provide, And, Whitney I know he's been trying to put that together and so forth, and with NORP, and NORP is a good, a good organization, and Whitney has a lot of good ideas, but yeah, I think essentially, that's what, needs to, eventually happen. I think it's coming. It's just, just a matter of time putting things together.
Well, I'm gonna speak on that. Then I'm gonna have to jump off, and I thought we may give Bob some time to talk, but I'm friends with, and so is Andy. Andy and I and David. Everybody's friends with Whitney, but I like to reiterate that our groups are different, and I think we believe in the same things. I think we all want to see the changes, but Whitney has an ideal of a structured organization, which I think is needed. The word union scares me. I don't like the word. I think there need to be some humongous jump out clauses on that union type. But
yeah.
Restoration.
I agree.
Restoration 2.0 is really it's just a group. It's just a thing. It might turn into something else. This organization was never designed to bring everybody together and then maybe even turning it into paying for dues and having content. Maybe it is and maybe it isn't. And I don't want to speak for Andy, because Andy is absolutely the brainchild. But I think NORP and us, while we are aligned in a lot of our beliefs, I think we're a little more vocal, and I think we're step off the edge a little bit further. And I think a lot of people in NORP aren't looking for that much of a disruptor standpoint. And I don't know, maybe I'm just rambling, and Andy, you could say, again, not talking negatively about Whitney, or
No.
North, because I'm friends with them all. But I do think that they, as much as we are alike, we also bring different things to the table and have different forums for things. We're not nearly as structured, and we have our standards, but it's really just, it started out as a Facebook group and it just kind of grew into what it is now, which is, I like it. It's growing.
Yeah.
And I am excited to see what it turns into. But I like, and Brad, I think Ryan's absolutely right that that's somebody that might be more of a structured, formal, especially if you start talking about a vetting procedure or process. I think that's something that he could probably intercept with. But I'm not diminishing what we're doing. I'm just saying that I think we're just
no, not at all, not at all. And I just think that if we set standards in our industry, if we like set groups like 2.0 and NORP and etc., then the other guys, they're not going to have any kind of way to kind of get in, if you will. They have to be accountable for their actions, so forth, like psychrometry, what it takes to actually dry a structure, what it takes to remediate a structure properly to standard, to the S520, to the S500, etc. These things need to be a little bit not, our industry is we're just going to look like a bunch of crooks in the end. That's essentially what we're going to look like if we do not tighten it up, and we do not tighten it up now, because these carpet cleaning bits are going to come in and they're just going to be,
Well, I would like to interject, and I'd like to ask a question that if yeah, bud. That's funny. We're like
Bob and
but
a couple.
all right.
Lost you.
So I want to ask an honest, and no one needs to answer this question, but I want you to ask it of yourselves. If these standards that we were talking about instituting, and these barriers to entry that we're talking about implementing, were in place when we joined this industry, would we have gotten in? Right? And if you're really honest with yourself, I wouldn't have gotten in. I didn't know shit from Shinola. But I got in, and I was willing to learn, and I've raised my standards over the years, and I've educated myself. If we put in barriers to entry and we scare off carpet cleaners, there's a lot of legitimate restoration guys that started out as carpet suckers. Are we just going to paint them with a broad brush and say, no, we are too good for you, you don't belong? I think it's a dangerous precedent. So we need to be very honest with what is our goal here. Yeah, we want to raise standards, but also we have $600 billion worth of restoration to perform in the next 2 years in this country. There aren't enough providers to do that. There's not enough adjusters, there's not enough equipment, there's not enough contractors. So if we're talking about putting a choke on the entrance, putting a bottleneck on the entrance to the industry, I think we're going down the wrong road. I think we're better off taking people into under our wings, into the fold, and teaching them the way. And if they wash out, then fine. But let's give them a chance. Let's give them a chance to do good, to do right. Sorry, Ryan. Now you should be unmuted now.
Well, I kind of. Yeah, you're right. I think I was kind of misinterpreted, but I definitely you're absolutely right. So we should train the people who want to be trained, but the people that do not want to be trained, we need to kind of weed them out.
Show them the door.
Well, I got an input.
Right.
I've got an input on this. Has anybody out there done background checks on their companies and their employees? I think that's a great thing to do.
A lot of people have to.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, you wear lanyards with your picture on it, and it says right on it that your FBI background checked, your local police, any of that kind of stuff. You have it right with you.
Nationwide
You're entering people's houses that don't know you from Adam. And if you got that on there with also something with drug back or drug testing, I think it'll go a long ways. That by itself is raising the standard.
The problem is, gentlemen, I think we're performing a service that while it looks simple, it looks easy, it's actually very technical. And it has a reach into health and health, individuals' health and to their financial well-being that's well beyond what we are. I think there needs to be barriers to entry. Half my business last year or more came from coming behind other people and doing whole house remediations because they don't know what they're doing. And what could have been a $25,000 dry and a $10,000 rebuild estimate because we could dry stuff in place, turn into 4-foot guts throughout structures, remediations, redries, and then total restorations. They turn into $150,000 jobs because we have very well-intentioned individuals that simply don't understand what it is they need to be doing. And I'm all for helping a guy out and getting him into the system, but this isn't like flipping a hamburger. If you screw it up or overcook it, it can go in the trash and no harm, no foul. You screw up this and you affect someone's life. Do you know I sat down and tried to figure out how much it costs if you expose a baby to a sensitizing dose of a mycotoxin up front that's commonly available in one of the molds. What's the cost in loss of productivity, their loss of work, their medical treatment over the entirety of their life, the loss of the quality of their life because they're sensitized forever? How many other conditions are they exposed to, and is their immune system weakened where they're more prone to have issues with things that are sympathetic to that? So us screwing up a job isn't just the economic damage we do to the insured. It affects people's life for the rest of their lives. I can't believe that the government hasn't legislated required credentialing and hasn't put something in place, because truly, they're worried about asbestos and lead and all these other exposures. We're leaving houses wet every single day, growing mold in them and creating real issues for people. And it's a whole lot more prevalent than any of those other things. This is, I think you guys can correct me, but I think in 2011 it was 0.067% of all structures will suffer water loss in any given year.
It's a little higher, but yeah.
So we're talking about an enormous number of structures, and it happens every day, all the time. And doing the third-party administrative work, coming behind other contractors in my industrial hygiene practice, I can promise you these guys, it isn't close to dry. It isn't me just being cranky because it's 14% or 15%. 3 months later, it's 24 or 25% because they never knew where to look. And they used a non-penetrating meter rather than a penetrating meter. They don't know what they're doing.
David.
And they're doing this to try and make $3,000 and $4,000 policy limits. Sorry. Got on my soapbox.
Yeah. A lot of these companies don't know the standard of MC, moisture content level. So what's your non-affected and your affected? You need to create a standard in order to dry properly. They don't know that, and I do agree with Andy at like 100%. It is good to offer the services to educate some of these companies that do have the drive to become a restoration contractor. But you have to understand the standard. You have to understand psychrometry. You have to understand how to dry, how a structure dries, how to remediate, etc. A lot of these people, Google is the worst enemy, of us, because people get online and they search how to remediate a structure, how to get rid of mold. And the first thing comes up is bleach. Sodium hypochlorite does not kill bleach or does not kill mold. It removes the staining, yes, but no, it does not kill the mycotoxin. So it's things like that that really kind of, especially if there's a carpet cleaner that carries a gallon of Clorox bleach into a home, pours it on it, and says, "Oh, you're good now. You're mold free. Now here, pay me $3,000." You know,
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that makes us look bad.
I think
So we do need to kind of push that aside, and we need to bring in. We do need to train. We do need to properly train these guys how to do things properly. Andy is absolutely right.
There's a whole subsection that are committed to the preferred vendor programs and the TPA programs. They realize they simply can't perform the standard of care and get paid. And worse than that, not only cannot perform the standard of care, but if they do the right thing, let's say it takes them 10 days to dry a house, they actually get kicked off of their TPA program.
Yeah, they get crucified.
Because, pardon me?
They get crucified. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if they do 3 days of drying and say, fine, my conscience won't let me do just 3 days of drying. I know it's still wet. And they leave equipment in at absolutely no cost to the carrier for another 4, 5, or 6 days. The carrier sees what they've done, and you've opened up a can of worms at that point, because now the carrier has one of their family that's just created a real problem for them. They just acknowledged structures don't dry in 3 or 4 days.
Yep.
And once they do that, the carrier then becomes responsible for that knowledge. If their own in-house person can't do it, then their outside guy can't do it either, can they? So now we've opened up a can of worms, which is why they got kicked off. One of the guys coming to our 2.0 got shunned by Nexus. One of the guys that's coming out to our conference got shunned by Nexus because he dried for too many days. Didn't charge the carrier. He said, I'm not leaving it wet and it's not dry yet. And he's gone 2 months without a single assignment.
Wow. Well, and that's just the reality.
So I don't know that it can coexist, and that's the problem.
I don't think it can. And when you talk about government regulation, keep in mind we're also talking about the same government that believes that pizza is a vegetable. Okay? So as long as we're feeding kids vegetables in the form of pizza in our cafeterias, that's how much common sense and rationality comes to play. I think we're on our own here. we're gonna have to do it on our own and raise our standard. Hey, Chris Laney just came in. Chris, microphone.
And we have a great standard if somebody would actually read it.
Well, but it's not.
We do have standards, guys.
New York.
The ICRC S500 and S520. Throw in a little ACGIH on top of that and best practice, and you've got a good workable standard.
Okay. Hey, Chris.
What?
Once you signed out.
But the New York standard, guys, is not a consensus standard.
Say what?
The New York guidelines are not a consensus standard.
No, they're not. They're de facto standards.
The New York guidelines were made up by a guy standing in his shower. And he looked at his wife and he says, how many square feet do you think we should have before we have to wear PPE? And how many square feet before we have to put that in? I heard that actually from a keynote speaker maybe 7 or 8 years ago.
Wow.
From who got it firsthand. And that's actually how that happened. There's no rhyme or reason to that. There's no science behind that. Nothing.
Wow.
So the only thing that applies any science to this is the S500 and the S520. And it is the only consensus document that there is. And if you guys have ever sat on any of those committees, you have no idea how long it takes for there to be anything close to a consensus on that.
Oh,
that's why the last S500 took like 7 or 8 years to put out. They started working on it within a year and a half. They knew there needed to be changes. It took them 8 years to get to the point where everyone could just agree and get something published. So, yeah, it's a mess, and it's incredibly political. But the document is useful at the end of the day. It gives you quarter. You look at that, you open it up, you point to the insurance company adjuster, and you say, okay, right here, here's where it says I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to inspect every day. If I think it's wet behind that, the standard says I'm supposed to look. If I think there's mold, in my professional opinion, I'm supposed to check for it. It gives me the latitude to do the kind of things as a professional that I should be able to do. It doesn't tie my arms. And then it tells you right up front, this is a standard and guide. You as a restorer, primary, you decide what has to happen.
Primary. Yeah, I agree.
So,
okay, who's 260-410-2940?
Sorry.
Who's that? Who's 2940?
Chris
Niner?
Chris.
Oh, Chris. Okay, you videoed in and you called in. Chris, how you doing, brother? We're going on over an hour here, so you must have got the time a little off. But what are you doing nowadays? What's going on with you?
Oh, no, I wasn't off. I just got to the hotel room and sat down and thought I'd see if you guys were still chatting because I was just getting ready to work on an estimate. So, what are you guys chatting about? It sounds like the IICRC S500. Boy, that can go on for a while.
I know. Well, I try to steer away from that, but David just wants to go straight to it every time. It's just a ball.
Sorry. Hey, I'll take it for a minute from you, but David, I agree wholeheartedly. I think the main issue that a lot of guys and a lot of things he's saying about, hey, Mr. Adjuster, it's in the S500. I think that is a major mistake. And I learned that sitting in front of Howie Wolf that sat and taught the class. When you sit there and have an argument with an adjuster over what is in the S500, in the end, we typically lose. The way to beat that is to put a poll note from the S500 on every single line item.
Yeah.
And we have found that after doing that, if they have questions for us, we stop talking. We say, if you have questions, send them through email. We don't have time to sit here and discuss when we're doing hundreds and hundreds of claims to talk through every single one. If you got a problem, send it to me. And I'm going to send back the poll note from the S500 standard because I got it on an Excel spreadsheet. And I copy it, we paste it, and one person knows they copy, they paste off of every single line item. And there it is, guys. I don't have to
Why are we talking to adjusters about drawing standards?
Why are we talking? I don't disagree. I'm not. The standard of care. The standard of care doesn't even have a calculation in the white pages or the blue pages, whatever it is, for dehumidification. So don't sit here and argue with me about it because I can set that dehumidification based off of what my technicians feel is best, whether they want to do it based off of the density of the material, that calculation, or if they want to do air exchanges, because the pint calculation doesn't work. So you've got those two calculations to choose. Choose one and do it. Document what you did and move on.
And for God's sakes, do a drying plan.
Well, let me stop you guys. Let me stop you guys. I'm a licensed adjuster. I wear that hat sometimes. I'm also a remediation contractor. I wear that hat sometimes. Never the two shall meet. If I am talking to an adjuster about why I had to dry something, I'm asking him to step out of his lane. He needs to know what's covered in the policy and what it costs to remediate. And if we entertain, okay, this is my opinion, and I'm sure someone's going to disagree. If we let them entertain in that conversation, we are diverging. We're going away from settling this claim in a prompt fashion because they are outside of their area of expertise.
Yeah.
Right or wrong?
Yeah, you're right.
That's
Right.
very
Absolutely.
Brad, I'm curious what you had to say about that because you wear both hats as well.
Yes, I wear the adjuster hat, I've wore the PA hat, and now I'm wearing the contractor hat. So when I go to Houston, I'll be wearing both on different sites. I do have customers there that have asked me to go down and inspect properties for them, and I will be working claims. I totally agree. I do agree with what Chris said, though. If adjuster does ask something, send it to him in writing. Document your file and go on down the road. As a contractor, we have to do that daily with adjusters on stuff that's IBC, IRC code, blah, 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 same things I'm sure you guys are familiar with. So I do agree with what you guys say, and I agree with the way that you're setting standards to move forward with your group. I think the vetting part that I spoke of earlier, I think it's not to get rid of people. It's to not let people in our group that are deceptive. Basically, that's where that came in. So I'm more than willing to teach people, to teach them how to use Xactimate correctly with other contractors. And I think both of our groups are moving forward with that at the same time.
Yeah, guys, hope springs eternal. I keep hoping that the adjusters that we see consistently, that they'll stop doing profoundly stupid things. And not all adjusters are like that, but I was a general adjuster for years. All right. My dad was claims manager for Indiana Insurance Company and senior VP. All right. So I came out of the industry, and I'm flabbergasted at the things that adjusters pick to argue about. If you're going to pick a fight, pick the right fight. If you're going to deny a claim on something that's solid. Document your loss to do what you. I got to tell you, they pick the stupidest stuff. So, here you are, you're seeing this guy on a consistent basis, and you're hoping, look, if I show you this, will you stop putting stupid stuff in your write-up? If I give you the quote and send you over the ESX with these things in place, will you take them and use them and copy and at least reference them in your report? Can I help write your report for you? So at the end of the day, you don't create 3 or 6 months of delay because you have absolutely no idea what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Let me help you not do that. Let me help you get this off your desk. Let me help you educate you just a little bit if you would. I understand, someone had to teach me too. If you'll let me give you this information, perhaps we don't have to go around this tree again. Now, I would never do that, by the way, on a storm loss. Storm, if they don't know what they're doing, you're not going to educate them in the field.
No. Hey, Chris,
so,
are you in Florida or Houston?
Me?
We just got into Florida today.
What part of the state you going to be working?
We're in Orlando right now, and we'll probably be here.
What types
What's
of
that?
are you going for? Are you going commercial work? You doing residential? What are you doing? What are you focusing on?
We're focusing on doing student housing. We'll be doing all the student housing for probably until it's done. The units we're on right now, there's 384 units in this complex, of which there's about 90 of them that are affected. And then we got another student housing facility that's down the street that once they get power on Friday, they're going to let us go map those. And I don't know how many units there are there. So we'll focus on that contract.
Wow. How long do you think we're going to be without power?
So I'm told that the power will be on at the other complex on Friday, and they've called generators off, so we're not bringing any generators in. Today we arrived on site, and we set up about 25 units this evening before they made us shut down at 8 o'clock every night. And so we were fortunate to have power at this whole facility. So we got power at the hotel we're at. We're in downtown Orlando, and there's power. And so I think it's a little hit and miss throughout the city here.
Wow.
40% of Tampa is still without power.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's a lot worse in Tampa. This, I got some guys that we're working the same contract together that are going to Tampa right now, in Tallahassee. So we're kind of right in that little triangle, and we're going to work that until this is all done. Good.
Well, we're an hour and 15 minutes. It's going to make for a really long YouTube video. I'm going to stop recording right now. We can talk for a little bit longer, but I'm going to stop the recording right now. Any last words? All right, y'all. Thanks for.
I think